Lepas dari siaran program-program menarik di RTM, jom saksikan semuanya di RTM Klik.
Pakistan and India agree to ceasefire after weeks of tensions. Putin proposes direct talks with Ukraine. Salam Malaysia Madani. This is World Today. I'm Otto Othman. Pakistan and India on Saturday agreed to a full and immediate ceasefire after days of deadly jet fighter, missile, drone and artillery attacks, which killed at least 60 people and saw thousands flee their homes along the border as well as in divided Kashmir. U.S. President Donald Trump on Saturday said that India and Pakistan had agreed to a full and immediate ceasefire after a fourth day of strikes and counter-strikes against each other's military installations. India's Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri had said that both sides would stop all firing and military action on land, air and sea. The Foreign Ministry in Islamabad also said that Pakistan remains committed to faithful implementation of the truce. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said the ceasefire came after he and Vice President J.D. Vance engaged with senior officials on both sides. Rubio also said on X that they had agreed to start talks on a broad set of issues at a neutral site. Pakistan Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif said his country, which has long sought international mediation in Kashmir, appreciates the U.S. intervention. India has consistently opposed mediation, however, and observes a more skeptical of the truce. China, which borders India and Pakistan, said Beijing was willing to continue playing a constructive role and remained concerned with any escalation. Meanwhile, hours after the two nations said they had agreed to a ceasefire, India and Pakistan accused each other of violations. After sounds of explosions were heard in Indian-administered Kashmir, India's Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri claimed that there had been repeated violations of understanding that both countries have arrived at. Hours after the announcement, residents in the main Indian-administered Kashmiri cities of Srinagar and Jammu reported hearing the sounds of explosions and seeing flashes in the sky. Indian Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri said India's armed forces was giving an appropriate response, and he concluded his briefing by calling upon Pakistan to address these violations. In response, a spokesman for Pakistan's Ministry of Foreign Affairs said, quote-unquote, "Now, notwithstanding with the violations being committed by India in some areas, its forces are handling the situation with responsibility and restraint." On a related note, residents of Chakoti, a border town near the line of control in Pakistani-administered Kashmir, welcomed the news of a ceasefire with India on Saturday. Now, nuclear-armed neighbors, India and Pakistan, agreed to a ceasefire on Saturday after U.S. pressure and 4 days of fighting. After witnessing intense cross-border shelling over the past 3 days, the border residents across the Jammu region, especially the worst-hit Poonch and Rajouri district, expressed their happiness over the full and immediate ceasefire between India and Pakistan, with the victims using the announcement as a breather to resume their normal lives. The areas which were wearing a deserted look after being pounded by artillery and mortars since 7th May have started returning to life. Artillery fire and attack drones were witnessed in Jammu and Kashmir, the center of much of the fighting, while blasts from air defense systems boomed in cities under blackout similar to the previous evening. India and Pakistani soldiers exchanged heavy volleys of shells and gunfire across their frontier in Kashmir until the ceasefire was reached. Russian President Vladimir Putin on Sunday proposed direct talks with Ukraine on 15th May in Istanbul that said should be aimed at achieving a durable peace and eliminating the root causes of the war. Despite public and private pressure from U.S. President Donald Trump and repeated warnings from European powers, however, Putin has offered few concessions towards ending the conflict. Now, Putin also said that Russia was proposing direct talks with Ukraine in Istanbul in an attempt to achieve the restoration of a long-term lasting peace. Major European powers threw their weight behind an unconditional 30-day Ukraine ceasefire on Saturday, with the backing of U.S. President Donald Trump, and threatened Putin with massive new sanctions if he did not accept within days. Trump, who said that he wanted to be remembered as a peacemaker, had repeatedly said that he wanted to end the bloodbath of Ukraine, then war, which his administration casts a proxy war between the United States and Russia. Former U.S. President Joe Biden, Western European leaders, and Ukraine cast the invasion as an imperial-style land grab and repeatedly vowed to defeat Russian forces. Bangladesh's interim government on Saturday banned the Awami League, the political party of former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, pending the outcome of a trial over its crackdown on mass protests that prompted her ouster last year. Now, according to the United Nations, up to 1,400 protesters died in July 2024 when Hasina's government launched a brutal campaign to silence the opposition. Hasina remains in self-imposed exile in India and has defied an arrest warrant from Dhaka over charges of crimes against humanity. Asif Nazrul, a government advisor on law and justice, said the government has also decided to ban the activities, including in cyberspace, of the Awami League under the Anti-Terrorism Act until the trial of Awami League and its leaders ends. Bangladesh's interim leader, Nobel Peace Prize winner Muhammad Yunus' administration also simultaneously approved an amendment to the country's International Crimes Tribunal Act, allowing authorities to prosecute political parties and their affiliated bodies. The Awami League rejected the administration's move, calling it illegitimate. The ban comes a day after thousands of people rallied outside Yunus' residence, demanding a ban on Hasina's party. Coming up next, national mourning for 11 troops killed by guerrillas. Ecuador's president declared 3 days of national mourning starting Saturday over the deaths of 11 soldiers who the army said were killed by dissident FARC guerrillas in an ambush near the Colombian border. The attack on Friday comes amid a spike in violence in both nations linked to trafficking of cocaine produced in Colombia and exported through Ecuadorian ports to the United States and Europe. Now, around 80 soldiers were carrying out an operation to combat illegal mining in the Ecuadorian Amazon when they were attacked by guerrillas, leaving 11 soldiers and a militant dead and 1 soldier wounded, according to Ecuadorian officials. The military, in a statement Friday, said that the ambush had been carried out with explosives, grenades, and firearms. The Office of the Prosecutor said on X a memorial and wake will be held for the victims at a military school in the capital. The national mourning period in honor of the slain soldiers will run through Monday, according to Ecuador's President Daniel Noboa on X. The prosecutor's office said earlier a criminal offshoot of FARC called the Commandos de la Frontera, or Border Commandos, was responsible for the attack in the eastern province of Orellana. The Ecuadorian military said it would not rest until those responsible are judged before the law and are held accountable. Spain has lifted an order to confine around 160,000 people in the northeastern Catalonia region on Saturday after a fire at an industrial estate caused a toxic cloud of chlorine over a wide area. Now, the regional government said the blaze started in the early hours of the morning at the swimming pool cleaning products company in Vilanova i la Geltrú, a town 48 kilometers south of Barcelona, and caused a huge plume of chlorine smoke over the area. Catalonia's Minister of Interior, Núria Parlon Iguil, said the fire was not yet out but was stabilized. No one has been hurt in the fire, Catalan Emergency Services said on Saturday, but residents in 5 towns were sent a message on their mobile phones telling them to remain inside. Worried residents said they followed the confinement instructions to the letter after text messages were sent to some 160,000 people. Now, the owner of the industrial property, Jorge Vinales Alonso, said a lithium battery may have caused the fire. It was reported that trains which were due to pass through the area were held up, roads were blocked, and other events were also cancelled. Now some business news. China's Q1 monetary policy signals resilience and global economic uncertainty, boosting confidence in social financing and foreign trade, according to an economic expert. Now, the report released on Friday by the People's Bank of China, or PBOC, China's central bank, indicates that China's counter-cyclical adjustment in its monetary policy yielded notable results in their first quarter. The total volume of finance had grown steadily, the credit structure had been continuously optimized, and the exchange rate of China's yuan had remained generally stable at the reasonable and balanced level, according to the report. Dong Jiemao, chief researcher at the Merchants Union Consumer Finance Company, said specific policy operations have undergone further refinement. With the support of various monetary policies, China's monetary credit has grown reasonably, Dong said, adding that the overall social financing cost has steadily declined and the credit structure has been further optimized. He added that cumulative effects of the many years of reserve requirement ratio and interest rate cuts have become more evident, and the overall social financing environment remains relatively relaxed. The report also sends new policy signals, including enhanced support for the real economy and efforts to boost consumption, according to Dong. Coming up in sports, Tengku Zafrul appointed as BAM president. Stay with us. Investment, Trade and Industry Minister Tengku Datuk Seri Zafrul Tengku Abdul Aziz is now officially the new president of the Badminton Association of Malaysia, BAM. Tengku Datuk Seri Zafrul holds the #1 seat of the BAM after being unanimously elected unopposed at the election held in conjunction with the 80th Annual General Meeting, or AGM, of the National Badminton Governing Body on Saturday.
Bagi saya ini adalah satu penghormatan yang besar dan amanah ini akan saya galas dengan penuh tanggungjawab, dedikasi serta keazaman untuk melihat sukan badminton negara terus cemerlang di persada dunia. Saya akan gunakan pengalaman luas saya di sektor swasta dan juga kerajaan untuk memastikan pengurusan BAM terus diperkasa dan BAM menjadi institusi sukan yang menjadi contoh bukan sahaja di Malaysia, malah di peringkat antarabangsa.
Tengku Datuk Seri Zafrul also requested for 100 days to obtain views from stakeholders, players, coaching staff and sponsors before formulating a strategic and effective plan for the development of the national badminton sport. He said that he needs the period of time to understand and examine the proposals or issues plaguing the national badminton sport, because he believes that this approach is the key to building a comprehensive and realistic plan for the sport. Bogakulu Longwane, Anthony Markanich and Robin Lod each scored goals to lead Minnesota United to a 4-1 victory over Inter Miami on Saturday in St. Paul. Minnesota won its second consecutive MLS match and third in a row across all competitions. Longwane, who scored Minnesota's first goal in the 32nd minute, quickly snuck in past Inter Miami goalkeeper Oscar Ustari. Minnesota then doubled their lead just before half-time, courtesy of Markanich in the second minute of first half stoppage time. Lionel Messi scored his sixth goal this season in MLS play 3 minutes into the second half to cut Miami's deficit at the time to 2-1. But disaster struck later in the second half for Inter Miami when Marcelo Winginto tried to head away a corner kick by Minnesota's Joaquin Pereira, but unanimously or unintentionally tapped the ball into his own goal to push the Loons' edge to 3-1 in the 68th minute. Moments later, Minnesota took advantage as Lod fired a shot past Ustari to stretch the lead further in the 70th minute. Miami had played without forward Luis Suarez, who did not make the trip due to personal reasons, and without left winger Fafa Picault due to illness.
Good movement as well.
The weekend's El Clasico will go a long way to deciding the destination of La Liga, and Carlo Ancelotti's Real Madrid side will need to play a complete game to defeat league leaders Barcelona, according to the Italian on Saturday. Real have a 4-point gap to make up with 4 games remaining if they are to retain the title, and for Ancelotti, they will need to get everything right to have a chance on Sunday. Now, he said this type of game, Barcelona are used to keeping the opponents in their own area, but no team is perfect. The speculation surrounding Ancelotti's future has only increased with the news that former Real player Xavi Alonso will leave Bayern Leverkusen the end of the season. But however happens, Real Madrid will remain dear to the Italian. Real Madrid and AC Milan before it are clubs that stayed in his heart, Ancelotti said, due to the time he's been there and because of the relationships. The honeymoon with Madrid, he stressed, is going to be until the last day of his life. Real have lost all 3 previous games against Barcelona in this campaign, including the recent Copa del Rey final, and exited the Champions League at the quarter-final stage against Arsenal, having won the competition last season. However, Ancelotti still regards this term as a decent campaign. World number 1 Jannik Sinner was ecstatic after a victorious return following a 3-month doping ban with 6-3, 6-4 win over Argentina's Mariano Novane in the second round of the Italian Open. Sinner agreed a stale settlement with the World Anti-Doping Agency in February and began an immediate 3-month suspension after authorities accepted the anabolic agent cholesterol had entered his system via massages from his physiotherapist. Now, Sinner cruised past Argentina's Navone in 1 hour and 39 minutes in front of over 10,000 supporters at the Foro Italico to set up a third-round clash with lucky loser Jesper de Jong. Now, Italian had not played since winning the Australian Open in January due to the suspension he accepted from the World Anti-Doping Agency, WADA, the following month. He twice tested positive for traces of banned substance called clostebol in March last year, although WADA accepted the 23-year-old had been accidentally contaminated by his physiotherapist. And Sinner delighted a partisan and packed center court in the Italian capital, shaking off the cobwebs as he eyes a run at Roland Garros later this month. Holder Iga Swiatek crashed out of the Italian Open to American Danielle Collins after a 6-1, 7-5 third-round loss on Saturday in a major upset that will cost the Pole the world number 2 ranking as the defense of her French Open title looms. Swiatek held a commanding 7-1 head-to-head record against Collins before the contest, and yet another early defeat does not bode well for the 23-year-old, who has not won a tournament since his or her 4th triumph on Roland Garros last year. Five-times Grand Slam champion Swiatek went 5-love down in the opening set before getting on board to avoid a beagle. Now, Collins was lethal from the baseline, mixing it up with forehand and backhand serve returned winners as she packed apart Swiatek's serve in an opening set that was one-way traffic. The second was level at 4-all as Swiatek showed flashes of brilliance, but the 31-year-old 2022 Australian Open runners-up Collins showed no mercy, sealing victory in 1 hour and 44 minutes when a return went wide. Collins fired 32 winners and converted 6 of 8 break points, while Swiatek, who had won the tournament 3 times in the last 4 years, made 22 unforced errors. Swiatek has lost 9 matches this year, as many as in all of 2024, while she has not reached a clay court final ahead of her bid to retain the French Open title later this month. Welshman Joshua Tarling set a time trial pace even race favourite Primož Roglič could not match to win stage 2 of the Giro d'Italia by 1 second on Saturday. Now, Tarling secured his first Grand Tour stage victory after the 21-year-old Briton had a nervous wait to see Roglič come so close, but the Slovenian had to settle for second place with the consolation of taking over the leader's pink jersey. Australian Jay Vine had set the early pace but came in third, 3 seconds behind Tarling in the short 13.7-kilometre individual time trial in Tirana. Vine crashed on Friday's opening stage but took the lead from Italian Edoardo Affini before Tarling showed his time trial prowess. Roglič, however, fell short and Wout van Aert was well off the pace early in his ride. Now, opening stage winners Mads Pedersen was last to go, and despite pushing hard to the end, the Dane finished 12 seconds down in 7th place and lost the overall lead to Roglič by 1 second. Still to come on our Offbeat segment, Harley-Davidson's Aero Festival makes a comeback. After a hiatus since 2018, the Harley-Davidson Euro Festival 2025 returns to Port Grimond in the Gulf of Saint-Tropez, France, attracting enthusiasts with a weekend full of events, exhibitions, and unveiling of the limited edition Fat Boy Grey Ghost. It lasts, well, all weekend and ends on Sunday. The festival, always popular with Harley-Davidson riders from all over the world, offers a rich program of events, exhibitions, and services. However, stealing the scene are especially the many motorcycles on display, which as usual compete in customization battles to win the prizes at stake.
I think anywhere in the world, it's about being yourself and getting on the road and the freedom that you feel. So, yeah, America has open roads, and it's a sense of experience, right, of just getting away and escaping. And I think anywhere you go in the world, when you're on a Harley-Davidson and you're behind the handlebars, you're feeling a sense of just escape and freedom. And that's really what it's all about globally.
Great anticipation surrounded the famous parade of Harleys that paraded through the streets of Saint-Tropez on Saturday before giving way to music and fun. Additionally, throughout the festival, Harley-Davidson offered enthusiasts the entire 2025 range with an opportunity for free test rides. Cannons echoed through Mexico City earlier this week as residents reenacted the Mexican Army's victory over the French 163 years ago, popularly known as Cinco de Mayo or the Battle of Puebla. The El Peñón de los Banos district upholds this tradition as an intangible cultural heritage, engaging local families and residents in a vibrant parade and battle reenactment between Mexican and French troops. Residents marks the 94th edition of the traditional with people lining the streets to watch participants dressed in period costumes recreate the battle and fire cannons. Cinco de Mayo commemorates the 5th May 1862 Battle of Puebla when Mexican forces triumphed over Napoleon Bonaparte's army. Over the decades, the celebration has transformed into a powerful symbol of Mexican unity and patriotism. Mexico's actual Independence Day is celebrated on 16th September, marking the beginning of Mexico's 1810-1821 War of Independence from Spain. A Swiss-Italian team has unveiled an edible robotic wedding cake featuring dancing gummy teddy bears and chocolate Escades edible batteries that power LED candles. Called RoboCake, the project blends robotics with culinary expertise and aims to highlight sustainable solutions for reducing waste and potential applications in health and environmental monitoring. RoboCake was developed by researchers from EPFL, the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology in Lausanne, IIT, Italian Institute of Technology, and pastry chefs and food scientists from the EHL Hospitality School in Lausanne.
The robotic cake is composed of just some examples of robotic food. It is made of it looks like a wedding cake, and on top of this wedding cake we have two dancing bears, and we have chocolate batteries. The chocolate batteries are used to power some candle lights. The consistency, the taste, and the smell of the robotic dancing bear and of the chocolate batteries have been refined by pastry chefs of the Lausanne Hospitality School.
To power the LED candles on the cake, IIT researchers built the first edible rechargeable battery, crafted from vitamin B2, quercetin, activated carbon, and dark chocolate. By replacing traditional electronics, the researchers said these components could help address the 40 million tons of annual electronic waste, while fully consumable parts would reduce food waste. Crowds gather to enjoy 3D light installations projected onto the facades of several cultural landmarks in the city center of Sofia, the Bulgarian capital, during the 4th edition of the Lunar Festival of Lights beginning Thursday. Iconic sites including the National Art Gallery, the National Library, and the National Theatre are illuminated with installations created by artists from around the world throughout the 4-day event. The festival brought together 100 scientists and innovators from Bulgaria, China, and several other countries. The event features lectures, presentations, and over 40 interactive booths covering topics like quantum tech, climate change, and artificial intelligence aimed at all groups. A key highlight was Saturday's presentation, From Myth to Reality, China's 20-year wonderful journey into deep space exploration. China was also showcasing its deep space exploration laboratory at the dedicated booth throughout the festival. The festival runs through Sunday. Well, that's it from us this afternoon. In our top story, Pakistan and India agree to ceasefire after weeks of tensions. Release It Tonight comes at around 8:30 p.m. this evening on TV1 and MyTV's Berita RTM News Channel. Happy Mother's Day, and from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Thanks for watching.